Boy, I wish I had learned to get relationships right a lot sooner in my life. I remember I'm going to say 37 or 38, and I was driving home from work, and I passed by the street where my little house was, and I remember banging the steering wheel and saying, I'm too smart for this. And then, in like a blinding flash of the obvious, I went, you know, based on results, apparently you're not. That was a relationship that became physically abusive. And from that day, it took me about 6 weeks and the threat of a temporary restraining order to get him the hell out of my house. But that's not all of it. You can go way back when I was 22. I got married the first time to a guy who looked good on paper, tall, nice blonde hair, in pretty good shape. He was an accountant, and I thought, okay, this is, like a serious guy I'm going to build a life with. But it wasn't meant to be. He slept around. He was a drinker and had a real problem with alcohol. And I didn't recognize it. I'd never had alcoholism in my family, so I didn't recognize it. And then the second marriage, this guy looked even better on paper. I mean, this guy could have been on the cover of like GQ or Men's Health magazine or something like that. He was runner and worked out every day and had an MBA and worked for a big company and wore suits really, really well back when guys wore suits more. And we got married. I think I was either 30 or 31 when I married him. And he turned out to be a narcissist and a emotionally abusive guy, just really, really insecure, And I was stupid enough to think like, my love will save him and he will, and he will see how much I love him. And it was like absolutely nothing was good enough for this guy. Like just nothing in terms of, just being true and being honest and being real with him and everything. It's like, it didn't matter. He was, suspicious and always questioning me, and nothing was right. And just, I mean, when I walked out, I remember it was New Year's Day, and I remember like backing my car out of the driveway of our home, and it was so cold. I lived in Michigan at the time, in the Detroit area. It was so cold, I remember the tires crunching on the snow, And but again, that wasn't enough for me. I had to get more punishment, I guess, and ended up with the guy who was abusive. And what ended up happening is that moment, like banging the steering wheel on my car and saying, I'm too smart for this. Well, apparently you're not, is I decided that I had to be willing to do whatever it took to be able to have and sustain a love relationship for life. Okay. And I came from a family, my parents were Catholic, my mom went 12 years of Catholic school, and there was a lot of love between them, but there was also a lot of dysfunction, and between that, I mean, they stayed married till death they did part, they were married 57 years. My dad died at 78, my mom at 91, just a couple years ago. And there was love, but there was also dysfunction. And back then in like the 80s and 90s, there was this idea that relationships were hard. And, if you were going to have a good relationship, it was going to be hard. And, but if you were willing to just do the work and go to therapy and, do all this stuff, it's like you could have a good relationship, right? That was sort of the cultural mindset of the day. And I got to tell you, the relationship that I have now and have been in for 28 years is pretty close to effortless. But let me go back a little bit more. So I set on this journey and I said, I am willing to do whatever it takes, right? And the biggest thing it took for me is, it was not, I didn't have to like have a makeover and, get fake eyelashes and get my lips pumped up or, long nails or, breast augmentation or anything. I mean, those things are fine if you want to do that. That's your choice. But I mean, don't do it because you think it's going to get you the right relationship. It's not. They might notice you, but not necessarily in the best way. What it really took is that my heart had been so broken and I was so guarded and so protective. I wore that protection, that guarding myself like a stinky, wet, cold blanket around me all the time. And I realized that to have a positive relationship, I was going to have to drop it and let it go. And I was terrified. For the first and only time in my life, and I'm thinking I was 37, I had a panic attack. Like I'm making a joke out of it, and it's not a funny thing at all. But I mean, I had never had a panic attack before. And I haven't had one since then, but it was couldn't breathe and all of that. So I thought, okay, I said, I'm willing to do anything. I will do it, And what I noticed is that when I started dating guys again, a few months after that, it wasn't that they were, they were good guys basically, but not good guys for me. In other words, not a lot of interest in common, and things like that, right? But that was a really, really massive part, was letting my guard down. And another thing was learning a little bit more, not a ton, but a little bit more about men and what men perceive as love. One thing they perceive as love is sex. Well, I was always very, very willing. I mean, sex is fun and it's great and it's awesome and everything. But there's more than that. It's when you're not in bed. And men don't want to be told, I love you, as much as they want to be told, I'm proud of you. They want respect more than they want mushy gushy love the way women want it, So got that. So then in August of 97, I met Ernie, my husband. And I met him at a beach picnic in Orange County should I say this? Okay, I'm going to say this because it's honest. I met him at a beach picnic for plus-size women and men who are attracted to that, because I have struggled with weight my whole life, and I wanted someone who thought I was sexy as hell the way that I am. And a couple of times in our 28 years, I've lost weight and maybe kept it off a little while, and then it went back on and everything. And I wanted someone who's going to love me regardless, right? And Ernie's that guy. And I knew it the day we met. It was this kismet, instant, perfect thing. Now, I'm not going to say that, we've had no problems at all. But compared to what my previous relationships were, this relationship for 28 years is pretty effortless. And when there are times when he is annoying me, I'm not saying I'm not going to tell him about it. Of course I am. I'm not a doormat, but I look at myself first, what's going on with me? Maybe I'm upset about something that's not happening the way I want it to. And, the old theory about kicking the cat and everything. No, I don't have a cat and I wouldn't kick one, but, the work is more about working on you on the inside, all right? Not so much the outside. And again, makeovers are fun, makeovers are great, but that's not what's going to create and sustain that love that'll be with you forever. So anyway, that's what I want to share. And I have a lot more to share about relationships and all those things that I wish I knew at 30. I got there by 39 and I didn't trust it for a while. Oh, and one more thing I want to say is that Ernie is from a different culture. And it was a culture that I knew almost nothing about. And I had a negative perspective about. He's originally from India. And by the time we met, he had been in the U.S. for like over 20 something years, but an American citizen and everything. But anyway, I mean, he just, to this day, I'm going to be 68 in a couple weeks, and he still thinks I'm like sexy as hell, and he likes my being ambitious and, all those things. So it is out there. It is possible. It is doable. But you have to be right first before you attract that. So anyway, thank you so much. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, What I Wish I Knew at 30, and I'd love your comments. I do respond to most comments. So thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.